Thus ran the confirmation twice, because once was doctrine and twice was conscience. First pass at minute 41. Pulse, respiration, aura trace, order layer absent, core reorganizing. She wrote it in the mooring berth's field ledger with the hand of someone who had stopped expecting good outcomes from rooms like this. Second pass at minute 53. Contact range void echo at minimum resolution, 3 meters, no tissue interface. Kael stood because sitting had become a category error. His legs would hold or they would not, and the difference mattered less than the reading. The absence was cleaner on the second pass. Not empty the way a wound was empty. Empty the way a keyhole was empty after the key was removed. The architecture still shaped for what had been there. Stress lines in the church foundation where order filaments had pulled free, natural gold beneath like water finding a lower channel. Thus said, confirmed. Order layer absent. Persistent void signature. Reorganization trajectory stable within partial success band. Bright, who had not holstered until minute 47, said, say it for the record. Thus said, subject Damien Cross. Order anchor layer, absent. Church foundation layer, present, stress 8% and declining. Natural core signature, gold, emerging. Consciousness, absent, non-convulsive. Vitals, stable. Bright keyed the transmission. Kael watched the light on the relay panel turn from amber to green, silver light investigative closure carrying subject modification status to Valdris staging, to the tightening team stalled 3 days at the capital's outer berth. To whatever church office would read the words and understand that their weapon had been unmade without their consent. Success was a green light on a panel. He filed that observation and did not trust it. Seraphine stood at the birth room's inner wall with her arms at her sides and her weight distributed the way she distributed weight before a duel she intended to win without spectacle. Light magic had taken more from her than combat usually did, not the dramatic collapse of overextension, the quiet subtraction of reserve spent on another person's tissue while his count held. She had not sat when Kael sat. She had not asked to sit. Thus offered water. Seraphine took it. Drank half. Set the cup down with precision that cost her a visible second of alignment. Kael's nose had slowed to seep rather than flow. He wiped once with the back of his wrist and did not check the cloth for color. Blood was a metric he already knew. He said, again in 4 hours. Thus said, protocol. He said, I know. Bright's transmission returned acknowledgement at minute 58, not from Valdris, from a silver light relay node that meant the capital had received and could not yet pretend it had not. Bright read it without performance. Investigative closure accepted pending physical verification. Church tightening team holds position pending doctrinal review. Armed fallback authority lapses in 6 hours unless countermanded. Seraphine said, they'll countermand. Bright said, they'll try. They won't succeed before the window closes. Kael said, 6 hours. Bright said, use them. He did not ask what she meant. 6 hours was mooring neutrality, medical stability, and the distance between done and survived politically. He had spent the compromise on the first. Seraphine would spend training on the second. Damien breathed. That was the success thus could sign and Bright could file, and the church could not unwrite without admitting what they had installed. In. Out. The rhythm was human, not the counted breath of the operation's second hour, not the arch of convulsion, not the weapon's afternoon cycle pressing against the room's air. Human rhythm in a body that had screamed once and gone still. Kael mapped the signature again because mapping was what his hands did when his mind needed not to name what he felt. Gold beneath rebuilt trellis. Church blessing without order override. The person inside the smaller power still asleep. Thus said, neural integration will take time. Consciousness timeline unknown. Seraphine said, he'll wake. Thus looked at her, then at Kael, then at Damien's closed eyes. I hope you're right. Seraphine said, I am. Not prophecy. Commitment. The emotional weight did not arrive as feeling. It arrived as the room's dimensions reasserting themselves, the berth chair's bolts, the lamp's heat, the mooring corridor's salt draft under the door. The fact that Calder's honor guard outside had stopped holding breath sometime around minute 45 and had not yet been told they could stand down. Kael stood at 3 meters and watched absence become a medical fact. 20% with complications. The complications were blood on his knuckles and hers, 11% church stress at peak, filament pull, Seraphine in the room when she had said she would be outside. The trust arc filed in operational language he had not examined and would not examine while Thess counted breaths. The success was Damien's chest rising. He said, "Done." Seraphine said, "Yes." Bright closed the investigative file on her tablet, a sound like a latch, and said, "To the room and to the relay, and to the capital that would hate them for it, order anchor removed. Subject alive. Silverlight authority exercised. Investigation closed." Silence held for 4 seconds. Then Thess exhaled the way field surgeons exhaled when the tourniquet could stay off. Outside, 158 days of southern quiet. Inside, a weapon unmade. Kael's hands shook when he reached for the water Thess offered. He drank. The shake did not stop. It was not failure. It was the bill for 40 minutes at a boundary no one had tested on living tissue. Seraphine watched him drink without comment. She did not ask about the nosebleeds return timeline. She did not ask about echo storage holding the order layer's recorded architecture in the space behind his perception where recordings lived, liability and evidence, and the exposure risk they had agreed to contain without mechanism. She said, "We need to move him to recovery wing before the afternoon tide shifts the berth." Thess said, "He can be moved on the cot. 2 handlers minimum." Bright said, "I'll clear the corridor." Kael said, "I'll map during transfer." Seraphine said, "I'll handle Crust's first ping." They moved because success was not a room you could stay in forever. Success was a state that required documentation, relocation, and the next person who would try to name what they had done as crime or miracle. The transfer took 11 minutes. Damien on the cot, unconscious, gold signature flickering like a lamp being trimmed. Calder's men at the corners. Thess at the head. Kael at 3 meters with void echo at minimum resolution, nose still bleeding lightly, mapping absence through the moorings east corridor. Seraphine walked beside the cot without touching it. Her hand stayed on the rapier hilt. Not threat posture. Balance. Kael noted that and filed it. Recovery wing was 2 berths down, window facing the gray channel, lamp already lit by a Silverlight orderly who had been told only post-procedure, high vigilance, do not ask questions. They set Damien on the inner cot. Thess attached monitors. Bright filed the location update. Seraphine stood in the doorway while Kael checked pulse at the wrist, steady, human, smaller than the Saint equivalent pressure that had made the east berth room feel too small. He said, "Confirmed." Thess said, "Again in 4 hours." He said, "I know." December 9th, late morning. Success was not celebration. Success was Thess's second signature on the confirmation block, Bright's green relay, Damien breathing on a recovery cot, order void present as persistent absence, and the 2 of them still upright in a corridor that smelled of salt and blood and the particular sterility of a neutral berth used for things no kingdom could publicly schedule. Seraphine said, "When he wakes, the world will have opinions." He said, "I know." She said, "We tell him what we returned." He said, "Yes." She did not move from the doorway. He did not ask her to. The intervention was complete. The confirmation was on record. Recovery belonged to a person who had not yet opened his eyes. Kael wiped his nose one more time. The bleed had stopped. The cost had not. That was success measured in the only units that mattered tonight. Alive, absent, reorganizing. The order's anchor was gone. Thess made it official. Bright made it transmitted. Damien made it breathing. That was enough for the morning. Seraphine left the recovery wing doorway at the same pace she left council chambers when the vote was won and the work was not finished. Kael watched her take 3 steps into the mooring corridor. On the 4th, her rhythm changed, not stumble, not collapse, the half-beat hesitation of a body whose reserves had been spent on light in a room that required silence. She caught the wall with her shoulder before her hand found it. Not dramatic. Worse. The kind of depletion she would have hidden if anyone else had been watching. He was watching. He said, "Seraphine." She said, "I'm fine." The word fine had never been less true in her mouth. He had heard her use adequate, sufficient, controlled. Fine was what people said when speaking was easier than accounting. He crossed the corridor in 4 steps and put his hand under her elbow, not lifting, not guiding, contact as data, tremor, heat still radiating from light expenditure. The fine muscle fatigue along her forearm that said she had held anchor longer than her reserves were designed for. Her skin was warmer than corridor air. Not fever. Residual light, the body's receipt for magic spent on another person's tissue while silence was mandatory and minutes were measured in blood. He had felt that warmth through her hands on his knuckles in the East birth room. Feeling it again through elbow contact was a different map layer. She did not pull away. That was the first unusual thing. The second was when she tried to take a 5th step and her knee buckled half an inch, caught before it became a fall, caught because his hand was already there, and because she had trained her pride to lose fights that mattered. He said, "Lean." She said, "I don't." He said, "Lean." She leaned. The mooring corridor was 12 meters from recovery wing to the officer's stair, salt air through the vent slots, plank flooring worn smooth by neutral ground traffic. A Silverlight orderly passing with a tray who looked once and then looked at the floor with the discipline of someone trained not to see coalition principles in unguarded configurations. Kael walked slowly. Seraphine walked with him for 2 meters. On the third, walking became performance. Her legs knew the choreography of upright exit, spine straight, shoulders level, the Lady Voss gait that communicated incident concluded to anyone watching from a respectful distance. Her legs knew it. Her reserves did not. At meter 4 her breath shortened. At meter 5 she stopped pretending. He said, "Stop." She stopped. He said, "Arms." She looked at him, one sharp glance, assessment, annoyance, something underneath both that she would not name in a corridor. Then she put her arms around his shoulders the way people did when they accepted being carried was cheaper than being witnessed falling. He lifted. Not effortlessly. He was 17 and diamond and exhausted and his nose had bled for 40 minutes today. But lifting was geometry, and she weighed less than the operational weight he had been carrying since November. She weighed more than he expected emotionally. He filed that and did not examine it. Carrying her was not romance in the corridor's architecture. It was logistics, her weight distributed across his center, her head near his shoulder, her breath warming the collar gap where Frontier Dawn Cold would have found skin if they had been outside. Her rapier scabbard bumped his hip once. She shifted it with a hand that still trembled. The orderly passed again, going the other direction. Looked at the floor again. Kael appreciated the professionalism. Calder's man at the corridor junction saw them and turned to study the wall map of tide schedules as if tide schedules had become urgently interesting. That was professionalism of a different corps, honor guard trained to witness coalition principles without recording what witnesses cost. Seraphine said nothing for the first 6 meters. Her breath against his collar was measured, not asleep, not fully present, the discipline of someone who refused to make the carrying harder by commenting on it. At meter 7 she said, "Put me down at the stair." He said, "No." She said, "Kill." He said, "You'll fall on the stair." She was quiet. At meter 9 she said, "This is undignified." He said, "Yes." She did not argue further. The officer's wing was 4 berths and a wash closet at the moorings west arm, neutral ground designation, Silverlight keys, crest observers barred without invitation. Kael had secured the end berth 3 days before the operation with Bright's authority and Seraphine's threat delivered politely to the mooring master. He carried her through the door with his hip because his hands were occupied. Set her on the narrow bunk. Not dropped. Placed, shoulder first, then hips, the weight thus placed unconscious patients when care was a professional habit bleeding into personal necessity. Seraphine sat on the edge of the bunk for 3 seconds with her hands on her knees and her head lowered. Color returned to her face in uneven patches. She said, "Water." He brought it. She drank. He stood at the berth's foot because sitting beside her would have been a configuration they had not authorized and the corridor had already been witness enough. She said, "I didn't fall." He said, "No." She said, "I would have." He said, "Yes." Silence. The moorings timbers creaked, tide shifting, berth adjusting, the ordinary motion of a platform that existed so kingdoms could do things to each other without calling them war. Seraphine looked at her hands. Light magic left residue in the fingers sometimes, warmth without heat, the echo of anchor contact. She flexed once. Stilled. She said, "You shouldn't have had to do both." He said, "You shouldn't have come in." She looked up. The look was not anger. It was the look from the gangway, come back filed, not examined, wearing different clothes. She said, the sound changed. He said, "I know." She said, "I held perimeter until wood was not enough." He said, "I know that too." She lay back on the bunk without asking him to leave. He did not leave. Not chivalry. Vigilance. Thus was with Damien. Bright was filing. Someone needed to be in a room where Seraphine Voss was allowed to be depleted without crest or commission or Selene reading the posture as weakness. He took the chair by the wash closet. She closed her eyes. Her breathing slowed from operational to human. He watched the rise and fall the way he watched perimeters, counting without announcing count, mapping without contact. Outside the birth room door, Mooring corridor, December 9th afternoon, 158 days southern quiet. Inside, a woman who never fell, asleep on a bunk because she had spent light on his operation and allowed herself to be carried because her legs had run out before her will did. Kael's hands had stopped shaking. His nose had not bled again. The cost was distributed differently now, across 2 bodies instead of 1 chair in an east birth room. He did not examine why that felt like improvement. The gangway warning lived in the same file, come back, unexamined beside the corridor's salt draft, and the blood dried on his cuffs and the fact that she had entered when wood was not enough. Trust accumulating entries without ledger review. He sat. She slept. Her face in sleep looked younger than council chambers allowed, not soft, never soft, but unarmored in the particular way exhaustion removed performance before it removed will. He looked at the lamp instead of her face for too long, and then at her face for exactly long enough to confirm breathing. The corridor held. Bright's relay chimed once in the distance, filing continuing, success becoming record, becoming politics, becoming the next fight. Damien breathed 2 births down. The order's anchor gone. Seraphine asleep because she had spent light for his operation and allowed carrying because pride had finally lost the correct fight. Kael's nose had stopped bleeding. His reserves had not fully returned. He would map again in 4 hours. He would not wake her to say so. That was carrying her. Not the lift. The permission. The vigil after. The choice to stand at the foot of the bunk instead of beside it, because beside it would have been a door they had not opened in daylight. December 9th afternoon continued without them. The mooring held. That was enough. Half-conscious was not sleep. Kael knew the difference from void echo mapping sessions that ran too long, the mind running on discipline, while reserves bottomed out, awareness present as texture without direction. Seraphine's breathing had settled into the shallow rhythm of someone who had let go of posture but not of self. The officer's berth was narrow, single bunk, wash basin, chair, lamp on a hook that swung when the mooring adjusted to tide. The room smelled of soap and salt and the faint metallic residue of a day that had included blood in an east birth chamber 2 corridors east. He sat in the chair with his forearms on his knees and watched the lamp burn lower. His cuffs were still marked where he had wiped Damien's blood and his own nosebleed in the same gesture because there had been no time for separate gestures. The moorings afternoon moved through the vent slots, salt, distant rigging, the thud of a crate shifted on the deck below. Ordinary sounds. The world continuing, because the world did not pause for successful extractions. At some point her hand loosened on the bunk edge. The hand that had anchored healthy tissue through his failing precision. The hand that had trembled once in the east birth room and stilled because stilling was what she did when stilling was required. At some point her lips moved. Sound without volume first, breath shaped into syllables the way dreamers shaped arguments they would not remember. He leaned forward 1 inch. Not closer to her. Closer to the threshold of hearing. She said it. 3 words. Not political. Not strategic. Not the procedural language she used for crest or the devastating precision she used in council. Not manage the threat or hold the perimeter or when he wakes. The tone was wrong for all of those. The tone was what remained when a person forgot anyone was listening, half-conscious, depleted, carried, held in a room where the only witness was someone who had bled on her brother's chest an hour ago and not died. Kael heard exactly what she said. He went still the way he went still when the Sovereign's eye registered an anomaly that changed the map. Not surprise performed. Stillness chosen because movement would have been the wrong category. He did not repeat it. Not in the room. Not in his mouth. Not in the interior monologue dressed as quotation. The cheap trick of narrating the words back to himself as if saying them internally were different from saying them aloud. He heard them. He filed them. The filing was not neutral. Files in his mind were not drawers. They were weighted. Some weights changed the center of gravity. This one did. She did not wake when she said it. She did not wake after. The syllables dissolved back into breath and the half-conscious drift, gone from her accessible memory before her eyes opened, if they opened tonight. That mattered. If she had woken and looked at him and known, the moment would have demanded a response he was not prepared to give in a mooring berth with salt air and blood, still dried on his knuckles. If she had woken and not known worse. This was the third case, said and lost to the layer she would not retrieve without being told, and he would not tell her. He stood once to check the corridor. Calder's man at the West Junction. Silverlight orderly gone. No crest observer. No commission clerk. The mooring's neutrality holding for 6 hours bright had bought. He sat again. The lamp flickered. Seraphine turned on the bunk, not waking, adjusting, her shoulder toward the wall, one hand curling near her chin the way people's hands curled when the body sought self-contact in absence of other contact. Kael looked at the lamp instead of her face. Looking at her face had become complicated in the space between minute 40 and minute 53, between gangway warnings and corridor carrying, between come back filed and 3 words spent without invoice. He did not examine the complication. He noted it existed. The almost said thing was not almost. It was said. The distinction mattered for how he would carry it. Almost was anticipation, the breath before a plunge, the negotiations still open. Said was a fact in the room's air alongside salt and lamp oil, whether or not she retained it. He would not bring it up. Not because it did not matter. Because it mattered more than anything else that had been spoken in the years since he had died in another world and woken in this one with a child's notebook and a sovereign core warming in his chest like a second heartbeat. Because the moment to answer was not when she was half-conscious and could not choose the saying. Because answering now would make it his response to her accident rather than her gift. He would wait for the version where she chose to say it awake. The afternoon thinned toward gray. Seraphine's breathing deepened toward real sleep, reserves recovering, lights still being paid in rest. Kael's nose had dried completely. His hands were steady. Void echoes recording storage hummed at the edge of perception where order architecture lived as evidence and liability. Damien breathed 2 berths down in recovery wing. The order's anchor was gone. Seraphine had said. He stopped the thought before it became repetition. Filed. Waited. Not spoken. At dusk thus sent a runner. Subject stable. 4-hour map confirmed absence. Vitals unchanged. Kael sent back, acknowledged. 1 line. The runner left. Seraphine slept. He watched her sleep and did not touch her hand and did not wake her to ask if she meant it and did not write the 3 words in any document because some intelligence belonged only in the place where he kept things that changed the map without changing the record. Outside, December 9th ended the way December days ended on the frontier, without announcement. Inside, the most important sentence of his second life sat unacknowledged between them like a door he had noticed was open and had chosen not to walk through until she opened it from her side awake. He would wait. He was good at waiting. He was less good at pretending what he had heard had not rearranged the furniture. He sat with the rearrangement. He did not speak. She did not know. The lamp burned low. That was the almost. Not the words. The silence after. Thus sent a runner at the hour. Seraphine's breathing deepened toward true sleep. Subject stable. 4-hour map confirmed absence. Vitals unchanged. Kael sent back, acknowledged. 1 line. The runner's boots faded down the corridor. He stood once more to check Calder's man at the junction, still present, still tactfully blind to the officer's wing door. He sat again. Seraphine turned on the bunk in sleep, murmuring something that was not the 3 words, logistics, perhaps, or crest, or the procedural language her mind used when the body rested and the profession did not. He did not lean forward to hear. Some listening had a limit. The limit was filed beside the sentence he would not repeat. December 9th dusk gathered in the vent slots. Damien breathed in recovery wing. Bright filed in the relay room. The intervention's romantic ledger, if he had been a person who kept such ledgers, gained an entry that could not be shown to anyone, including the speaker. He would carry it the way he carried the Sovereign Corps' warmth. Quietly. Until she chose daylight. At full dark, Seraphine's breathing shifted again, deeper, reserves climbing back from the bottom light had scraped. She did not wake. He did not sleep. The chair was hard. The lamp was low. The mooring creaked. Somewhere Calder's man changed shift without looking toward the officer's wing door. Kael thought about response options and rejected all of them for the same reason. She had not chosen the saying awake. The rejection was not noble. It was accurate. Accuracy was the only form of respect he trusted himself to perform at hour 10 of December 9th, with blood dried on his cuffs and echo storage holding order architecture behind his eyes like a second headache. He sat until the lamp burned out. Then he sat in dark. The 3 words did not glow in the dark. They did not need to. He had heard them. That was enough to change the map. Not enough to change the record. Not yet. He heard. The fact did not soften with hours. December 9th night became December 10th gray, and Seraphine woke in the officer's berth with the controlled efficiency of someone who rebuilt posture before memory. She washed her face. She braided her hair. She asked for Crest's overnight thread and answered it with procedural language that disclosed outcomes without mechanisms. She did not say 3 words. She did not almost say them. Kael sat at the small desk with tea he had not drunk and watched her return to the world without examining whether the return included what she had spent in sleep. He did not bring it up. Not bringing it up was work. It was not the absence of work, the easy path of men who did not notice, or who noticed and forgot, or who filed and dismissed. He noticed. He remembered. He chose silence the way he chose battle geometry, deliberately, with cost acknowledged in advance. At the recovery wing doorway, she stood the way she had stood the night before, hand on rapier hilt, weight distributed, vigil without performance. He stood beside her at the distance that communicated partnership without claiming. Damien's chest rose and fell. Eyes closed. Gold signature settling. Thess said, no change. Integration proceeding. Seraphine said, he'll wake. Kael said, I know. Neither of them said anything else that mattered. The not saying extended through breakfast, ship biscuit, bitter coffee. Silverlight mess rules applied to coalition principles without comment. The mess smelled of tar and porridge and the ordinary indifference of a relay platform that had hosted worse mornings than this one. Seraphine read 3 dispatches. Kael mapped Damien at 3 meters. Bright arrived with investigative closure confirmation from Baldrus. Tightening team holding, countermand attempt failed within the 6-hour window, church doctrinal review scheduled and therefore delayed. Success on paper. On the table between them, the weight of 3 words he would not place on the table. She drank coffee without looking at him over the rim. He noticed she drank left-handed today. Small detail. Filed without comment. The detail was not the sentence. The sentence was not the coffee. She said, Commission will want procedure documentation. He said, route through Bright. She said, Crest will want hero status. He said, hero status is unconscious on a cot. She looked at him. The look was assessment, partner, operator, person who had entered a room when wood was not enough. Not the look of someone remembering she had said. He redirected his attention to the coffee. Redirect was habit. Habit was armor. Interiority, for Kael, was not confession. It was inventory. Item. 3 words, heard, not repeated. Item. Desire to respond, present, classified, deferred. Item. Reason for deferral. She had not chosen the saying. Answering would steal the choice. Item. Fear underneath. That waiting was cowardice dressed as respect. Item. Counter. That answering half-conscious speech was theft dressed as romance. He did not resolve the items. He carried them. Gareth's message arrived mid-morning. Send word when he wakes. Kael answered, not yet. Gareth replied, then send word when you sleep. Kael did not reply to that. Seraphine saw the exchange over his shoulder, not intruding, the angle of standing beside someone at a relay. She said, you should sleep. He said, after the 4-hour map. She said, you said that 6 hours ago. He said, the map matters. She did not argue. She brought him water when his hands shook reaching for the cup, without comment, without touch beyond the transfer of the mug. Warmth in action. Not words. He drank. He filed the water. He did not file it as proof of anything. Proof accumulated without being requested. December 10th afternoon. Damien's fingers twitched. Reflex. Not wake. Thus documented. Seraphine stood at the doorway. Kael mapped absence again. Order void persistent. Church stress 7%. Gold emerging like vine finding trellis. He said, stable. Thus said, yes. Seraphine said, when he wakes, we tell him what we returned. He said, yes. The yes was easy. The other sentence in the room was not. He would not bring it up. Not today. Not when she fielded Crest's second briefing request with the same procedural armor as the first. Not when Bright needed him to sign Silverlight Custody Amendment for medical transport to Frontier Relay. Not when Calder asked for honor guard rotation orders in a voice that meant I saw you carry her yesterday, and I will not speak of it. Especially not then. The interior chapter of a life was mostly silence. Kael had learned that in the first barony winter, the child's notebook gone, the sovereign core warming, no one to speak to about what he was becoming. This silence was different. It had audience, one person, 10 meters away, reading commission language aloud to a relay while he pretended to read aura traces. It had content, 3 words she might not remember, he would not forget. It had duration, undefined, chosen, painful in the precise way chosen pain was preferable to the wrong moment's relief. He would wait for her to choose. He would not test her memory. He would not trap her with gratitude or obligation or the operational leverage of you said this when you were depleted. That would make him the kind of person he had spent 8 years refusing to become. December 10th dusk. Lamp low in recovery wing. Damien breathing. Seraphine at the door. Kael in the chair. She said, sleep 1 hour. He said, after the map. She said, no. He slept 1 hour because she said no the way she said lean, not request, operational fact. He dreamed nothing useful. He woke and checked Damien's pulse before his own. Steady. Still unconscious. Still alive. Seraphine still at the door. Still not saying. He stood. He did not speak. She glanced at him, brief, partner check, and returned to the corridor view. The glance did not contain memory of 3 words. Or if it did, she wore absence the way she wore control. He would not dig. Night again. The herd thing lived in him like a second map laid over the first, same geography, different roads. He could navigate both. He would only show her one until she chose the other. That was respect. That was fear. That was love filed without label, which was the only kind he trusted himself to carry. At midnight he walked the relay deck without purpose, perimeter habit, body needing motion while mind needed not to speak. The southern horizon was dark and quiet. 158 days. The northern ceasefire held. Inside the berth Seraphine had not returned to the officer's wing. She kept recovery wing doorway vigil now, rapier at hip. Crest thread answered from the relay room between checks on Damien's breathing. Kael passed the doorway. She glanced up. Partner check. No 3 words. No test. He continued to the rail. The filed sentence did not lighten with walking. It did not need to. It needed time. Below, relay workers coiled rope by lamplight, ordinary labor continuing because ordinary labor was how platforms survived spiritual emergencies and extractions and saints at northern gates not yet fought. Kael watched them coil rope and thought about how wars were also rope, tension, hold, release, the wrong release killing someone. Seraphine had held his operation when wood was not enough. He would hold her sentence when speaking was not enough. Different tensions. Same discipline. Damien did not wake on December 10th through the working day. The person inside the smaller power still slept through Crest briefings and commission requests and Thessa's neural integration notes. The person awake on the relay deck had heard the most important sentence of his life and would not speak it back into the world until the speaker owned it in daylight. He returned from the rail. Seraphine glanced up from the recovery wing doorway. Partner check. No 3 words. No test. He sat vigil in the chair. He did not bring it up. It mattered enormously. That was the chapter. Not the words. The waiting. Damien woke at the 4th gray hour of December 10th with a sound that was not a scream. Gasp, air remembered, lungs expanding without order, architecture forcing rhythm. His hand found the cot edge. His eyes opened on a ceiling he did not recognize. The ceiling was Silverlight standard, pale wood, reinforcement ribs, a lamp hook that swayed when the mooring adjusted to tide. Not the East Berth room where he had sat for mapping sessions and Operation and Scream. Not the cathedral aesthetic the church preferred for heroes. A recovery room. Honest architecture. Gold aura. Not saint equivalent pressure. Not the afternoon weapons heat pressing against the room. Gold, his level, his actual development, the honest ceiling of a man who had been boosted into a suit too large and had lived inside it until someone cut the seams. Pain came second. Not wound pain. Reorganization pain, nerves finding channels without filaments, core settling into architecture that fit, muscles reporting absence where override had steered them for years. His fingers curled. Unbidden. Not cycle. Memory of cycle. Thess was there in 3 seconds. Pulse elevated. Conscious. Disoriented. Damien said, "Where?" Thess said, "Silverlight Recovery Berth, Frontier Relay Mooring. December 10th. You've been unconscious approximately 17 hours." Damien closed his eyes. Opened them again. The ceiling was still unfamiliar. The pain was familiar in the way adjustment was familiar, the body honest about cost. He said, "The anchor." Thess said, "Gone." Silence held in his throat. Not relief first. Something more complicated than relief. He said, "I can feel the church layer." Thess said, "Expected. Foundation intact. Order overlay absent." Damien said, "It feels like mine again." Thess did not answer that with doctrine. She said, "Vitals stable. Pain expected. Emotional response expected." Damien laughed once, broken, surprised by sound his own throat made without steering. Then the crying began. He spent the day crying. Thess offered privacy with the professionalism of field medicine, screens drawn, honor guard redirected, monitors left attached. She did not ask why. She documented emotional discharge, non-pathological, subject coherent between episodes, and left him water at intervals. Damien cried the way people cried when the person they had been trying to be finally had room to be the person they were, without performance, without afternoon cycle, without the church calling grief weakness and the order calling weakness useful. He cried for settlements he had walked through without understanding. He cried for the boy who had wanted to be good. He cried for the hours inside the weapon when his hands had moved and his will had not. He cried for faces he could not fully retrieve, ire mark civilians behind purification euphemisms, the collateral document Kael had read and Seraphine had laid open during November arguments about values dressed as process. Memory without order steering was not mercy. It was inventory. Thess heard silence between episodes and did not intrude. Once she adjusted a monitor. Once she left fresh water. Field medicine's version of witness, present without interpretation. He did not cry for the anchor. The anchor did not deserve tears. He cried for what the anchor had worn himself, thinned, distributed across afternoons that were not his. Kael mapped at 3 meters every 4 hours because protocol was the excuse his vigilance needed. The maps showed absence, order void persistent, church stress declining, gold emerging like vine finding trellis after parasite removal. Each pass confirmed success. Each pass also confirmed Damien had not yet opened his eyes to receive it. At hour 6 Thess sent a brief update, emotional discharge continuing. Subject coherent. Requests privacy maintained. At hour 9 Thess sent word, conscious. Stable. Requesting no visitors until evening. Kael acknowledged. Seraphine fielded Crest from the relay room. Second briefing request answered with procedural language that disclosed outcomes without mechanisms. Bright amended custody records. Calder rotated honor guard without asking why the screened berth required redirection. The day passed, Southern quiet 158 days, Northern ceasefire holding, Ironmark not probing, the world waiting for a hero to wake and explain himself. Gareth sent a message through the infirmary relay. How long unconscious? Thess answered through Kael, awake. Not receiving. Stable. Gareth replied, good. The rest can wait. Kael read it twice. The hero was not available. Damien Cross was in a screened berth, crying quietly where no one could weaponize it. He emerged at dusk. Hair disordered. Eyes swollen. Gold aura steady at a human scale. Warm the way honest light was warm, not the forged or heat of boosted saint equivalents. Thess walked beside him, not escort, medical caution. He stopped at the recovery wing doorway where Kael stood with a cup of cold tea he had forgotten to drink. Damien looked at him the way people looked at someone who had pulled them from a burning building and left them with scars that were still better than ash. He said, I have a lot to answer for. Kael said, you have things to answer for. You're not answering for things that were done through you. Damien's breath caught, not sob, not speech, the body receiving a sentence it had needed and not expected. He said, I remember some of it. Kael said, I know. Damien said, not all. Kael said, you don't have to carry all of it to carry what you can. Damien looked at his hands, gold aura steady, no afternoon heat pressing against the air, the hands that had moved without will and would move with will again if he chose correctly. He said, they'll call me weapon still. Kael said, they'll call you many things. Damien said, what do you call me? Kael said, Damien. The word was not absolution. It was category correction. Damien received it like water after a day of crying, necessary, insufficient, the beginning of something that would take longer than one dusk doorway. Seraphine arrived from the relay room at the sound of voices, not rushing, deliberate, rapier at hip, political armor in place for the world that would have opinions tomorrow. She stopped 3 meters away. Damien looked at her. She said, welcome back. Not warmth performed. Acknowledgement earned. Damien said, you came in. He had heard Thess's notes, Calder's corridor gossip, the operations record. Seraphine said, the sound changed. Damien nodded. The nod cost him. Kael watched the exchange without inserting himself. 3 people who had held different parts of the same door. Thess said, vitals stable. Pain manageable. Tremor risk flagged. Afternoon cycle absent. Neural integration incomplete. No combat recommendation for 72 hours minimum. Damien said, I'm not asking to fight today. He looked at Kael. I might ask tomorrow. Kael said, ask tomorrow. Bright arrived with custody amendment paperwork, voluntary cooperative status, Silverlight investigative closure extended to post-recovery monitoring. Damien signed with a hand that shook once and steadied. Signing was choosing to remain visible in records that would be used against him and for him in unequal measure. He signed anyway. Seraphine watched the signature land. She said, Crest will read this by morning. Damien said, let them read. Not bravado. Acceptance. Night settled on the relay mooring. Damien returned to the screened berth, not retreat, exhaustion, the honest fatigue of a first day entirely himself. Kael sat in the chair outside the screen. Seraphine stood at the corridor junction. Damien's breathing slowed toward sleep, human rhythm, gold warmth, no order void, because the void was not his burden to feel. Through the screen cloth, the sound of a man crying once more quietly, then stopping, then breathing again. Not weakness. Adjustment. 17 hours unconscious. 1 day crying. 1 sentence at the doorway. You're not answering for things that were done through you. Kael had meant it. Damien had needed it. The intervention's human half had begun. The weapon was unmade. The person was awake. That was December 10th's second success, quieter than Thess's confirmation, heavier than Bright's green relay. Kael checked pulse at midnight. Steady. Damien slept without the afternoon's drowning. Kael did not sleep. He filed the day. He did not bring up 3 words. Some doors opened one at a time. Damien chose over porridge and bad coffee the next morning. The porridge was thin relay ration, frontier supply chain, still prioritizing militia over comfort. The coffee was burnt. Damien ate anyway because eating without counting breaths for cycle rise was a freedom he had not practiced in years. Not in a ceremony. Not with a church representative or a silverlight oath or the hero's cape that had never been his anyway. He sat on the recovery cot's edge with his feet on the deck and his gold aura steady and his hands still, not tremor-free. Thus had flagged risk, but still in the way that meant mine. Through the berth window, gray channel, fishing tenders, a coast that did not know his name or his afternoon. Lyra arrived on the midday supply runner from the Frontier Relay South, not summoned, informed, because Kael had learned that Lyra heard important things the way lightning heard tall objects. She stopped in the doorway, looked at Damien. Not the weapon she had read about in dispatches, the saint-equivalent problem, the purification operations, the afternoon cycle that made strategists use words like geometry. A person. Taller than she remembered from academy corridors. Older in the face. Younger in the eyes. Damien said, "Lyra." She said, "You look like you." He almost smiled. Almost was enough. The choice was stated simply. Damien said, "I'm not staying as the hero. I'm not asking church cover or order leash or silverlight reinstatement as a symbol." Kael stood by the wash closet, not looming, present. Damien said, "I'm Damien Cross. Gold aura. Former candidate. Person with a complicated recent history." He looked at his hands, still, not steady, honest. "I want to fight in ways I can see are protecting people. Not purification. Not steering. Not afternoon weapon." He looked at Kael. "No formal structure. No title. I'll take orders from people who tell me the truth about what we're hitting and why." Kael said, "Yes." One word. No negotiation. The yes had been prepared since November when he had chosen extraction over elimination and mend it. Damien exhaled. The exhale shook once. Not cycle. Relief without architecture to name it. Lyra said, "That's the first interesting thing you've ever done." Damien blinked. Lyra said, "Sorry. That came out wrong." Damien said, "No, it didn't." He looked at his hands again, gold, honest, still learning ownership. "I spent years being impressive to the wrong people." Lyra said, "Now you get to be boring to the right ones." Damien almost smiled again. Almost was becoming habit. Seraphine joined at the second bell, crest thread paused, commission documentation routed, political containment continuing its work of disclosing outcomes without mechanisms. She heard the choice summarized by Bright in 3 sentences. She said to Damien, "The coalition will be questioned for harboring you." Damien said, "I know." She said, "Crest will call it liability." Damien said, "I know that too." She said, "Manage the threat or free the victim." Damien looked at Kael. Kael did not speak for her. Damien said, "I'm not asking to be freed from consequence. I'm asking to be used correctly." Seraphine held his gaze. She said, "We'll see." Not approval. Not rejection. Assessment. Damien accepted it the way he had accepted Thessa's pain management, without argument, with the humility of someone who had learned what wrong use felt like from the inside. She said, "If you fight for us, you fight with truth in briefing. No surprises. No afternoon exposure unsupervised. Thus medical gate absolute." Damien said, "Yes." Seraphine said, "That yes is a contract." Damien said, "I understand contracts better now than I did before." The sentence was bitter. Honest. Seraphine nodded once. Contract accepted. Bright said, "Commission will want an interview within 10 days. Damien said, "I'll answer truthfully." Bright said, "Truthfully within custody terms." Damien said, "I understand." He was learning that contracts came in layers, Thess medical, Seraphine political, Bright doctrinal, Kael operational. All preferable to the single layer that had worn him like welded armor. Combat offer was informal. No compact document. No hero designation. Damien Cross attached to coalition operations as gold combat capability under Kael's direction. Visible protection. Civilian facing when possible. No solo purification runs. No afternoon unsupervised exposure until thus cleared tremor risk. Kael wrote it in the private ledger. Damien, gold, informal coalition combat, truth in briefing requirement, thus medical gate. Seraphine added. Political exposure accepted. Crest descent expected. Bright added. Silverlight custody amended to voluntary cooperative status pending commission review. Damien read none of these. He was learning to eat without counting breaths for cycle rise. Thus watched him eat with the expression of a physician measuring recovery in behaviors rather than declarations. She said, tremor risk means stop when hands shake. Damien said, I know. She said, you'll ignore that once. Damien said, probably. Thus said, then Kael will stop you. Damien looked at Kael. Kael said, yes. One syllable. Operational. Damien accepted it, not as leash, as structure he had never had without steering. Lyra stayed through afternoon mess. She talked more than Damien did habit, warmth, the reader's access point to honesty. Kael usually routed through strategy. She said, so you're not saint anymore. Damien said, I was never saint. I was boosted. Lyra said, feels different. Damien said, like taking off armor that was welded on. Lyra said, heavy. Damien said, lighter. Hurts more. Lyra considered that. She said, Kael's like that too. Hurts more when it's real. Damien looked across the mess to where Kael reviewed relay traffic with the expression of someone doing math on a war that had paused for one person's choice. Damien said, he cut the welded part. Lyra said, I know. She did not elaborate. Interesting, she had said. Not when he was weapon. Now. Kael observed without joining Lyra's honesty, Damien's earnestness, the coalition's moral geometry shifting by one gold combatant who wanted to protect people visibly. Visibility mattered. The order had hidden Damien inside a hero. Damien wanted the opposite, to be seen doing good without institutional steering. Dangerous. Necessary. Kael said yes. The yes had been building since November's compromise, removal first, elimination fallback, values disagreement logged, trust arc filing in gangway warnings and east birth rooms and corridors where carrying was permitted. Damien's choice was the human confirmation that extraction had returned a person capable of choosing wrong and choosing right. Not a weapon calibrated by others. A man. Halvar sent a northern line through relay, heard hero unmade. Heard he chose. Perrin wants to meet him when stable. Kael answered, not hero. Damien Cross. Gold. Meeting when thus clears. Halvar replied, send the name. Names matter up here. Kael sent the name. Small act. Load bearing. December 10th evening. Damien walked the relay deck with Thessa's permission. 20 minutes. Supervised. No aura exertion. The wind off the channel found the gap between collar and jaw. Frontier cold. Specific honest. Calder's honor guard nodded. Silverlight orderlies did not stare. The frontier relay's ordinary traffic continued, crates, ropes, a courier complaining about tide. A child ran past chasing a coil of twine, ordinary life, indifferent to hero mythology. Damien watched a family disembark from a fishing tender, mother, 2 children, ordinary life. He stood at the rail until his eyes stung again. Not weapon tears. Human tears. Kael stood 10 meters back. Not guarding. Witnessing. He had pulled a person from a weapon. The person was learning to stand at rails and cry without afternoon steering. That was the Ark's human metric. Not saint equivalent absence. Personhood presence. Seraphine sent Crest's third briefing response from the relay room. Procedural language. Outcome disclosed. Mechanism protected. The southern front stayed closed. The northern ceasefire held. Inside the coalition. A former weapon choosing personhood and combat in the same breath. His choice. Kael's yes. Lyra's interesting. Seraphine's we'll see. The hero crisis's human ledger balanced one entry richer. Damien returned to recovery birth before dark. Gold aura study. Afternoon cycle absent. Tomorrow he would ask to train. Tonight he slept as himself. Kael did not bring up 3 words. Damien's choice was the chapter's work. The romance's sentence stayed filed. Both belonged in the same war. Different rooms. Same house. The order struck back on December 11th with law instead of a weapon. Malachar arrived at Valdris Capital's outer berth at dawn with 40 Templars in white surcoats and a church directive that had been prepared before Damien woke, before the extraction succeeded, if Kael's network read the timing correctly. The timing was the tell. Spiritual emergency declarations did not draft themselves overnight unless someone had been writing them while still hoping the anchor would hold. Kael had known the order would answer anchor removal. He had not known the answer would arrive dressed as care. The spiritual emergency declaration hit the Capital Relay at the second hour. Kael read it in the Frontier Relay's secure room with Seraphine beside him and Bright on the relay's other end. The room was cold, winter insulation insufficient, lamps burning low to conserve oil, the kind of cold that made fingers stiff on relay keys. By authority of the Church of Light and the emergency provisions of the Valdris Concordance, a state of spiritual crisis is declared within the Capital District. Civil functions pertaining to doctrinal security, heretical modification of blessed persons, and sanctuary of the faithful are transferred to church interim administration pending resolution. Legal coup. Not soldiers in the street first, paperwork with Templars behind it. The oldest coup in Valdris. God before crown when crisis permitted. Seraphine said, Kaelin's charter. Kael said, already invoked? She said, filed at dawn through Wartime Advisory Council channel. 3 noble council signatures. Kaelin as nominal chair. Emergency authority over frontier security matters, contested, but on record before Malachar's directive cleared the outer gate. Bright said, Malachar is at the northern cathedral steps. Public address in 1 hour. Kael said, transmission. Bright said, blocked inside Capitol walls for civilian relays. Our nodes on the ridge have line of sight. He extended the Sovereign's eye toward Valdris. 2,000 meters ambient from Frontier Relay did not reach the capital. The network reached. Composite site assembled 3 ridge agents, staggered angles, the habit of never trusting one pair of eyes. Valdris Capital. Winter light on stone, crowds assembling because spiritual emergency was also theater. Merchants opened upper shutters. Clerks lingered on balconies. Children held on railings because children always appeared where adults pretended gravity was adult only. Malachar stood on the cathedral steps without armor, white and gold vestments, staff of office, Templars flanking at respectful distance. He did not shout. He did not need to. A century of practice had taught him how to fill space without volume. Kael watched through a ridge agent's eyes, not possession, relayed sight, the intelligence network's composite perception. Malachar spoke of corruption in the faithful. Of a hero stolen and mutilated by frontier heretics. Of Silverlight investigators who had exceeded mandate. Of a kingdom that had forgotten its church in favor of coalitions and barony-born strategists. Every sentence was law-shaped. Every sentence was belief-shaped. That was the danger. Crowds listened the way crowds listened when fear and comfort arrived in the same voice. A woman in merchant dress wept openly. A boy selling rolls watched with the calculating eyes of someone who would describe this afternoon to customers for a week. Kael noted both reactions. Belief was not uniform even in believers' crowds. That was a seam too small for battle. Large enough for law. Seraphine said, he believes it. Kael said, yes. She said, that's worse than if he didn't. He said, I know. Bright said, Templars are moving on 3 offices, Commission Southern Regional Annex, Silverlight Liaison House, Davin Crest's private chapel. Not arrest. Seizure of records under Spiritual Emergency Authority. Seraphine was already writing counterfilings, Wartime Advisory Council Authority, Emergency Charter Provisions, Noble Council Protest Language. Her pen did not pause when she spoke. Dual competence, legal war and partner war in the same body. Kael said, Halvar. Relay from North. Perrin holding discipline. Contingent asking questions. Need clarity. Kael answered, spiritual emergency at Capital. Coalition authority contested. Hold ceasefire line. Do not march on Valdris without charter confirmation. Damien stood in the doorway, gold aura. Thes's clearance for light duty only. Eyes on the relay screen showing Malachar's calm face. Damien said, he's talking about me. Kael said, yes. Damien said, he's wrong. Kael said, he believes he's right. Damien was quiet. His hands curled once at his sides, not cycle rise, anger without afternoon architecture to steer it. Then, what do we do? Not what do I do. We. Kael filed the pronoun. He said, we answer law with law and geometry with geometry. Bright said, Templars will reach Northern Gate by noon if they march now. Seraphine said, they'll march. Believers don't seize records all day and go home. Kael said, then we meet them at the gate. Lyra said, finally. Not bloodthirst. Relief that the waiting part was ending. Damien checked his gold aura once. Steady, low, honest. Thess said over relay, if you go supervised. Light combat. Stop when I say stop. Damien said, I hear you. Bright said, Malachar will claim spiritual emergency supersedes charter. Seraphine is filing counterinterpretation now. Kael said, how long? Bright said, long enough to fight. Maybe long enough to win legally if you win physically. Kael said, then we need both. Seraphine's voice on relay, not looking up from pen, you'll have both. Not comfort. Schedule. Bright said, Crest Private Chapel seizure halted at the door. Davin Crest's men refused entry without warrant. Spiritual emergency authority insufficient for forced entry, legal friction live. Seraphine said, keep friction live. Kael said, how long can friction hold? Seraphine said, long enough for you to win at the gate. Kael said, then we win at the gate. The column moved. Mud sucked at hooves. Winter held the capital in gray light. The order had struck back with law. The coalition answered with charter and steel. No one on the road spoke of victory. They spoke of positions and timing and whether Royal Army would fire. Kael did not know. He knew geometry. That was enough to ride north. The capital's northern gate became the line by noon. Not because Malachar had marched there first, because Kaelin's wartime advisory council named the northern gate the frontier security interface when spiritual emergency tried to dissolve civil authority into church interim administration. The filing had been prepared in September's emergency charter work. 6 pages, Seraphine's signature, Bear's receiving office, Kaelin's nominal chairmanship. Kaelin's own transmission arrived as the column moved 4 paragraphs, no flourish. I have invoked the charter provision as nominal chair. I understand what this makes me in the capital's eyes. I understand what Malachar will say about it. Proceed. Kael read it once. Filed Kaelin's courage without replying with sentiment. Replied, received. Coalition moving to Northern Gate. Hold Southern Reserve. Contested. Documented. Fought on 2 fronts. Seraphine in the relay room with filings and noble council signatures. Kael on the road north with Damien, Lyra, Calder's honor guard converted to field escort, and a coalition column that had been assembling since Bright's first warning at dawn. The column moved through winter mud and merchant traffic and the ordinary inconvenience of kingdoms pretending they were not at war with themselves. Household guards from allied nobles fell into march order without parade, professionals who had learned frontier wars taste in Ironmark and did not require inspiration speeches. The road north was mud and frozen ruts and merchant carts, pulling aside for a coalition column that did not carry royal banners or church white. Kael rode at center with Lyra on his left and Damien on his right, geometry chosen, not symbolic. Damien said, he'll call me heretic modification. Kael said, yes. Damien said, he'll mean it. Kael said, yes. Damien said, I need to be there when he says it. Kael said, that's why you're writing. Damien nodded once. Gold aura low. Well, hi. 40 Templars at the capital. Malachar at their center. A saint against a diamond. The gap was real. The charter was real. The coup was real. Kael rode without examining whether the 3 words filed in a mooring berth made him more afraid or less. Fear was not the metric. Geometry was. December 11th, the order struck back. The coalition moved to answer. Valdris capital's northern gate waited like a door neither side owned yet. Malachar believed God had given him the key. Kael believed maps could be redrawn. They would test both beliefs before dusk. Kael observed Malachar from distance because close observation of saints was how diamonds learned the gap's specific shape. The ridge relay node above Valdris's merchant quarter gave him composite sight, 3 agents, staggered angles, the network's habit of never trusting a single pair of eyes. Malachar moved through the northern cathedral district at the pace of a man who had nowhere urgent to be because urgency was for people who doubted outcomes. Approximately 120 years old. Life extension light magic maintained the skin and joints and voice, not vanity, doctrine. The high priest must endure to steward eternal truth. The cost lived in the eyes. Eyes that old did not hide weariness. They hid it beneath certainty so thick it functioned as armor. Saint-level aura. Not performance. Kael felt it even through relay pressure against ambient perception, the way weather pressed against a window. Calm. Certain. Powerful in the specific way of someone who had been powerful for a very long time and had forgotten that forgetting was itself a vulnerability. Network files on Malachar were thin where theology was thick. Born Valdris low nobility, third son, entered church seminary at 14. Ordained at 22. Rose through doctrinal courts, not intrigue, consistency. Issued 17 major encyclicals. Oversaw 3 spiritual emergencies in provincial cities, each ended with church interim authority restored and civil governors chastened. Never lost a doctrinal argument on record. Never publicly acknowledged error. Kael read the file in the command tent 2 kilometers north of the gate while Seraphine's counterfilings transmitted south to the Wartime Advisory Council channel. Believer. Not caricature schemer. That was harder. Schemers had exits, shame, exposure, the bargain revealed. Believers had martyrdom. Malachar's address at the northern gate was not for soldiers. It was for the city, merchants on balconies, clerks in upper windows, Templars at rest position. Aldrich's royal army observers on the wall who had not yet received orders to intervene because the king was calculating which institutional support would survive the week. Malachar spoke of spiritual emergency as care. The faithful require protection from heretical modification of blessed persons. The kingdom requires guidance when civil authority acquiesces to frontier experimentation. The church does not seize. The church stewards until crisis passes. Each sentence legally grounded in concordance emergency provisions Kael had read in Kaelin's appendix work, provisions written for plague and schism, not for a successful order anchor removal. Seraphine said over relay, "He's good." Kael said, "Yes." She said, "I hate that he's good." He said, "So do I." Deep unease lived beneath Kael's analysis, not fear of losing, fear of the opponent's category. Malachar was not Damien's afternoon weapon. Not order steering hidden in hero mythology. Not a schemer who would fold when exposed. He was a man who believed the church was the kingdom's soul and that souls required surgeons when infected. In his map, Kael was infection. Silverlight was complicity. Damien was sacred property mutilated. The map was wrong. The sincerity was complete. Defeating sincerity required more than defeating fraud. Kael watched Malachar bless the Templar line, light magic not flared for show, the steady radiance of a saint who had spent a century practicing foundation architecture in his own core. Life extension was not separate from faith in his body. It was evidence. God permits me to endure because the work is not finished. Kael felt the sovereign core's quiet warmth against that radiance, not opposition, not hunger, relationship. Understanding versus certainty. Both powerful. Not the same. Lyra said, "He's creepy calm." Kael said, "He's certain." Lyra said, "Same thing from far away." Damien said nothing. Gold aura study. Eyes on the relay image of the man who had spoken about him as sacred property. Kael glanced at Damien. Damien said, "He would have kept me as the hero." Kael said, "Yes." Damien said, "Then I need to be on the wall when this ends." Thess said over relay, "Medical clearance. Light combat only. Tremor risk elevated under stress." Damien said, "I hear you." He meant thus. He also meant the risk. Seraphine's legal front updated hourly. Wartime Advisory Council Authority, recognized by House Aldenvane, House Evren, Commissioner Vare's Southern Regional Office. Crest dissent filed, but not unanimous. Kaelin's nominal chairmanship. Constitutional legitimacy sufficient for coalition action pending Crown response. Crown response, absent. Aldrich too silent. Royal Army on the wall. Not intervening. That was its own message, king isolated between charter coalition and church emergency, choosing stillness until someone won clearly enough to be obeyed. Malachar had not needed the king's public endorsement. Spiritual emergency law was designed to function when kings hesitated. Clever. Believers clever, not thieves clever. Kael closed the file. Observation complete. Category assigned. Believer saint. Legal coup architect. Life extended. Calm. Dangerous. Unease filed without resolution. Schemers could be bargained with when bargains were leverage. Believers required breaking, belief, body, or both. He did not prefer either. He preferred maps that did not require this gate. Network nodes reported Malachar's Templar disposition through the afternoon. 40 soldiers, white surcoats, light-trained, not fanatics, professionals who believed their commander was lawful. Harder than fanatics. Fanatics broke when belief broke. Professionals broke when command broke. Malachar was the command. Kael studied the disposition maps in the command tent, choke points at Northern Gate, Royal Army positions on the wall, civilian sight lines for Malachar's theater. Seraphine transmitted legal updates in parallel, enjoinment filings, noble council signatures, Kaelin's chairmanship acknowledged in 2 districts, contested in 3. The battle would be military and legal simultaneously. Seraphine had trained for this. Kael had trained for the other front. Together they were the coalition's two-handed hold. Lyra said, "He's not a cartoon villain." Kael said, "No." Lyra said, "That's annoying." Kael said, "Yes." Damien said, "He would have kept me." Kael said, "I know." Damien said, "Then I need to be on the wall when this ends." Thess said over relay, "Medical clearance. Light combat only. Tremor risk elevated under stress." Damien said, "I hear you." He also meant the risk. The gate was required. Malachar stood at it in white and gold when the coalition column arrived, Templars in formation, citizens on balconies, Royal Army above, winter light flat on stone. Kael dismounted. Geometry began. In the command tent 2 kilometers north, Lyra paced because pacing was how she processed calm opponents. Damien sat sharpening nothing, hands needing occupation, gold aura low, eyes on the relay, image frozen on Malachar's face. Calder reviewed honor company positions. Coalition nobles' household guards waited in cold that found armor gaps. Kael read Malachar's encyclicals again, not for tactics, for voice. The voice was consistent across decades. No sudden cruelty. No theatrical villainy. Care. Stewardship. Correction. The believer's vocabulary. Malachar blessed water at a street fountain 3 blocks from the gate, public gesture, ordinary magic, light foundation without combat flair. Citizens knelt. Some wept. Some watched with the flat expression of people who had learned that spiritual emergency meant paperwork would reach their shop by afternoon. Kael noted both reactions. Belief was not uniform even in believers' crowds. That was a scene too small for battle. Large enough for law. Seraphine transmitted. Crest Chapel seizure enjoined. Commission Annex seizure contested. Second Noble Council signature incoming. The legal seam widened 1 inch. Malachar did not know yet. Or knew and believed God would close it. The gate was required. Malachar stood at it in white and gold, certain God had authorized the day. Kael stood 2 kilometers north with diamond aura and a sovereign core warming in his chest and a coalition that had unmade a weapon and could not unmake what came next. December 11th afternoon. Observation ended. Engagement scheduled. The believer waited. The strategist prepared. The unease remained, not weakness, accurate weather report. Believers were harder than schemers. The network had told him so. The ridge relay showed Malachar's face turning toward the northern road, as if he felt a tension the way saints felt pressure. Maybe he did. Maybe certainty sensed its opposite. Kael did not romanticize the thought. He filed it. He moved. The battle was not yet begun. The opponent was already fully seen. That would have to be enough. The Northern Gate battle began at the 3rd hour afternoon with law still in the air and steel deciding what law could not. Seraphine fought in the relay tent, not with blade, with filings. Wartime Advisory Council authority versus spiritual emergency provisions. Noble Council signatures versus High Priest encyclicals. Kaelin's charter language versus Malachar's concordance interpretation. Every transmission a strike at the coup's legal spine, while Kael struck its physical one. The relay tent smelled of ink and cold lamp oil. Seraphine's handwriting did not shake. Kael's hands would shake later. Different costs. Same battle. Kael stood on the kill ground before the gate with the coalition arrayed behind him, frontier forces, allied noble household guards, Calder's honor company, Damien Gold on the left flank, Lyra Lightning paired to his right. 40 Templars. Malachar Center. Saint versus Diamond. The gap was real. The charter was real. The fight was real. Kael breathed once. Extended the eye. Began. Winter sun low on the gate stone arch, no glamour, no blessing, just light on a place where law and steel would decide who held the capital's throat for the next season. Saint versus Diamond. The gap was real. The sovereign's eye extended first, not ambient, engagement scale, the battlefield geometry Kael had learned at a Shenvale and refined through Ironmark. He saw Templar positions before they committed. Saw Malachar's light foundation gather, not flared, prepared. Saw Damien's gold steady and Lyra's lightning restless. Saw the royal army on the wall watching without orders. He directed accordingly, shift left, hold center, deny the gate's choke to Templar wedge formation. No shouted technique names. No exposition to the enemy. Geometry spoken through runners and hand signals, and the eye's quiet pressure on commanders who had learned to trust the boy who saw completely. Malachar moved like a man who had fought before memory became doctrine. Saint-level light, not the growth warmth Seraphine carried, the weight of foundation architecture used as weapon. Barriers that solidified air. Spears of radiance that did not dazzle, they pierced. Kael answered with space, fold short, economical, diamond precision without Gareth's 40-year extension. Void echo at the edge of engagement, not contact, recording Malachar's pattern architecture for the seam where understanding might find entry. The first exchange lasted 90 seconds. 3 Templars advanced. 2 fell to coalition crossfire. 1 retreated. Malachar did not retreat. He said, "You mutilated a blessed person." Kael said, "I returned him." Malachar said, "The church will steward what you defiled." Kael said, "The church can try. No philosophy beyond that." Believer and strategist. Both meant it. Seraphine's legal battle transmitted at minute 4, Emergency Charter Authority recognized by Southern Regional Commission Office. Spiritual emergency seizure of Crest Chapel enjoined pending hearing. Malachar's coup lost 1 office on the map. The gate did not move. Law was slower than steel. Seraphine knew that. She filed anyway. Voss Radiance at full power came at minute 6, not at the gate, through Relay Authority channel as political radiance. The noble council houses she had moved for years acknowledging coalition legitimacy in public record, while Kael bled at the gate. Dual front. Both real. Minute 10. Lyra's lightning broke a Templar shield wall. Combination hold Kael directed. 3 strikes. Gap opened. Calder's company exploited. Minute 12. Malachar's counter struck Kael's left flank. Light spear through a noble guard's line. 3 dead before Damien's gold intercepted. Damien fought visible, protecting, not purifying. The difference showed in target selection. Malachar noticed. Malachar said, "He is corrupted still." Damien said, "I am myself." The sentence cost him breath. Kael filed the cost. The fight settled into duration. Not dual glamour. 40 minutes of pressure, repositioning, casualties, the Saints' endurance against the Diamond's eye and the Coalition's mass. Gate stone dust in lungs. Templar shields glowing. Coalition lines bending and not breaking because bending was also geometry. Malachar was old. Life extension did not remove fatigue, it delayed it. Kael was 17. Diamond did not remove cost, it organized it. The sovereign core warmed through the strain. Not dramatic, present, relationship deepening under sustained combat the way understanding deepened under sustained attention. Royal army on the wall still had not fired. Aldrich watching. Isolating himself by inaction as surely as by decree. Kael noted that and returned to Malachar. Believer first. King second. Geometry first always. Minute 22. Command Officer Aldous fell. Light barrier collapse. Chest pierced. Dead before he hit stone. Minute 24. Command Officer Perrin's Deputy Mara fell. Templar flank. Throat. No time for names spoken aloud. Minute 27. Command Officer Brennan's Signal Lieutenant fell. Radiance splash. Blinded first. Killed second. 3 Command Officers. Malachar's price for not falling cleanly. Kael did not stop to mourn. Mourning was after geometry resolved. Aldous had trained frontier auxiliaries for 2 years, patient, exacting, the kind of officer who remembered names. Mara had been Perrin's deputy before Perrin held the northern line, competent, unshowy, killed holding a flank she had not been ordered to hold because she saw the geometry before the order arrived. The lieutenant had been young 19, Signal Corps, the sort of soldier who made relays reliable because reliability was a form of courage nobody applauded. Kael filed their names in the order he would grieve them later. Now, Malachar's barrier misaligned 1 degree. Minute 31. Seraphine's filing broke the Spiritual Emergencies Record Seizure Authority in the Commission Annex. Legal coup lost its administrative teeth in 1 district. Malachar felt it, not knowledge, pressure, the believer's sense that God's map had shifted. He pressed harder. Saint-level radiance at full architecture, the gate stones cracked, coalition center buckled, Kael's space fold strained. Diamond against Saint. Gap real. Not insurmountable. Understanding a seam. Void echo recording. Sovereign's eye directing Damien and Lyra in combination. Lightning through the fold Kael opened. Gold holding the line Lyra exposed. 3 beats. Malachar's barrier misaligned 1 degree. 1 degree was enough. Lyra's lightning was not elegant in the Academy sense. It was honest, immediate, the reader's access point to power without performance. Damien's gold held where holding mattered, visible protection. Sergeant pulled back from radiant splash, too late for Mara, not too late for the man beside her. Kael saw all of it, directed all of it, paid for all of it in nosebleed and core strain. Minute 38. Kael closed the seam with space and dark braided through echo, not extraction, combat application. The recorded pattern fed back as dissonance against Malachar's foundation key. Malachar staggered. Belief did not stagger. Body did. Minute 40. Malachar fell. Not dead immediately, St. Cores did not extinguish like candles. Wounded center mass. Light architecture collapsing. Templars broke formation. Coalition surged. Damien took the radiant splash meant for Calder's sergeant. Gold intercept. Badly burned along left arm and ribs. Down but breathing. Thes's medical channel already screaming for field lane. Malachar's last breath was a word, not spell, prayer. Kael did not hear it clearly. He did not need to. Belief dying sounded like belief living, quieter. Minute 41. Malachar died on the gate stones. Believer's eyes open. Certainty finally surprised. Kael stood over the body with nose bleeding again. Echo limit approached. Not crossed as far as extraction. Far enough. The gate was held. The saint was fallen. 3 command officers were dead. Damien was badly injured. Seraphine's last filing transmitted. Spiritual Emergency Authority enjoined capital-wide pending Noble Council hearing. Legal coup breaking. Templars surrendered at minute 43. White surcoats dropped, blades down. The practical theology of soldiers who served institution, not martyr. Royal Army on the wall did not fire. Aldrich II's silence continued. The battle ended. 40 minutes. Both fronts. Victory at cost already being counted. Kael lowered the eye. His hands shook. The sovereign core cracked audibly only to him, hairline warmth, not damage, preparation. He did not stop for that either. Damien first. Mara's name second. Aldous third. The lieutenant fourth. Malachar fifth. Geometry resolved. Grief scheduled. December 11th dusk at the northern gate. The believer was dead. The coup was dying. The coalition still stood. Barely. Enough. Victory at cost was not a ceremony. It was Thess on her knees beside Damien's burned flank while Templars sat in rows with hands bound and coalition soldiers counted their dead on gate stones that Malachar's radiance had cracked. Winter wind moved through the gate's broken masonry. Blood cooled. Radiance residue tasted metallic on the air. Light magic's aftermath. Not pleasant, not holy physics. 3 command officers. Aldous. Mara. The signal lieutenant whose name Kael had known well enough to grieve without needing it spoken twice. He stood at the gate's center with blood on his knuckles, Malachar's, Damien's, his own nose, and did not call it victory aloud. Seraphine arrived from the relay tent at the 4th hour after engagement with legal confirmation in hand and exhaustion in posture she would not name. Her rapier was still at hip. Her pen had run dry twice during the battle's 40 minutes. She said, "Spiritual emergency enjoined." Seizures halted. Wartime Advisory Council authority recognized for coalition security actions pending Crown response. Kael said, "Aldrich." She said, silent. Royal Army held fire. He said, "Isolated." She said, "Yes." That was the political map after Malachar, king without church architect, church without high priest, coalition with contested but recorded authority, Order's legal coup collapsed because its believer center was dead on stone. Templars surrendered. Not all 2 had died in the fight, 3 wounded, 35 in custody. Bright arrived with Silverlight authority to process prisoners under investigative closure precedent. Heretics in white, the irony filed without comment. Malachar's body was covered. Church law would want rights. Coalition law would want autopsy. Seraphine said over relay, "Both." Kael said, "Yes." Royal Army on the wall still had not moved. Aldrich isolated in palace silence, support structure gone, swords remained. That was the victory's political shape. Exposed king, broken coup, coalition authority on record, war not finished. The Templars on the ground sat with hands bound. The Templars in the city would learn slowly. The church would fracture along belief lines, some mourning Malachar as martyr, some quietly relieved the coup had failed, most waiting for instruction that would not arrive cleanly for weeks. Kael had seen institutional fracture before. It was opportunity and hazard in equal measure. Damien lived. Badly injured, burns along left arm, 2 ribs cracked, gold aura depleted to flicker, tremor risk realized under stress. Thus said, "Stable. Transport tonight. No combat for weeks." Damien said, "I held the line." Kael said, "You did." Damien closed his eyes. Not weapon sleep. Pain sleep. The choice validated in blood that was his own mistake and his own heroism. Kael would not separate them for him. Kael felt the sovereign core in the quiet after battle. Not dramatic. Hairline warmth along the core's inner surface, cracks he had first noticed under the extraction strain and the months that followed, widening now under 40 minutes of sane opposition and eye direction and echo application at combat depth. He sat on a gate stone when Thess cleared him medically and mapped his own core the way he mapped others. Cracks. Not damage. Preparation. The understanding relationship deepening under pressure the way understanding deepened under sustained attention. Not breaking, opening. Growth stages second threshold approaching. Not now. Not announced. Quiet. He filed preparation not damage and did not celebrate. 3 officers dead. Malachar dead. Damien burned. Celebration would have been insult. Coalition soldiers wrapped Aldous in oilcloth. Mara beside him. The lieutenant beside her. No speeches. Honor guard would carry them south when carts arrived. Calder stood over Aldous's wrapped form with his hand on his sword hilt and his jaw set the way honor captains set jaws when speeches were insufficient. Lyra sat on a curb with her head in her hands, not collapsing, processing, lightning still humming low in her fingers like nerves that had not received stand down. Damien lay on the cart thus prepared, conscious, burned, alive, staring at Northern Gate Stone as if memorizing the place where he had chosen correctly once and paid for it. December 11th night, capital quiet uneasy. Spiritual emergency dissolved without its high priest. Church offices in confusion, provincial bishops transmitting contradictory instructions, Templar command vacant, doctrinal court scrambling for succession. Order's institutional front exposed. Not destroyed, the order was larger than Malachar, but the legal coup's architect was gone and the believer center that had held certainty was ash cooling on gate stones. Aldrich, too, remained in the palace. Royal army remained on walls. Primary institutional support for the king's isolation strategy gone. Kael's network reported the capital's mood: fear, relief, calculation, prayer, merchants locking shutters, nobles sending runners to coalition posts with loyalty offers dressed as concern. Seraphine processed offers with procedural language that accepted alliance without accepting subordination. Kael processed security, Templar prisoners, gate repair, royal army watch rotation, the geometry of a capital that could still turn hostile without Malachar's belief to organize hostility. Bright processed prisoners with silverlight authority and the cold patience of a doctrinal investigator who had won the argument and knew the war continued anyway. Thus processed wounded, Damien first, coalition soldiers second, even 2 Templars with burns because Thess did not sort mercy by uniform. Lyra rode beside Damien's cart because stillness was not her language when people hurt. Damien did not speak during the first mile south. Then he said, Mara. Kael said, I know. Damien said, Aldous. Kael said, I know. Damien said, I should have been faster. Kael said, you were where geometry needed you. Damien closed his eyes. Not absolved. Placed. The crisis closed on a ledger Kael wrote at midnight in the command tent. Order anchor, removed. Damien, himself, gold, coalition in formal combat, injured, living. Malachar, dead. Legal coup, collapsed. Templars, surrendered. Aldrich II, isolated, royal army intact. Coalition authority, contested, recorded. Southern front, closed 158 days. Northern ceasefire, holds. Kael, diamond, echo strained, sovereign core cracking toward next growth preparation. Seraphine, legal victory simultaneous with military. Seraphine, corridor filed, not spoken. Gareth, infirmary, awaiting word. He sent Gareth one line. He woke. He chose. Malachar fell. Damien hurt. We held. Gareth replied. Then sleep. Kael did not sleep yet. He stood at the tent mouth and watched Valdris capital's lights, fewer than usual, fear's economy. The city would wake tomorrow to a high priest dead on northern gate stones and a king silent in his palace and a coalition that had answered law with law and geometry with geometry. The cost sat in him like weight correctly placed. Aldous, Mara, Lieutenant, Damien's burns, nosebleed, core cracks humming preparation not damage. Seraphine joined him without speaking. She stood at the distance that was their habit. Not touching. Present. Warmth and action through the whole month. Gangway, operation, corridor carry, water brought without comment. Legal war fought while he fought steel. She did not say 3 words. He did not prompt. The door stayed open unacknowledged. Wind moved through the tent mouth. Winter, capital smell, smoke from gate fires being damped. Somewhere a soldier coughed. Somewhere a cart will squeaked carrying Templar prisoners south. The continent continued. The crisis ended without announcement. Victory at cost. Cost. Aldous, Mara, Lieutenant, Damien's burns, Kael's nosebleed, echo exposure risk contained not erased, political storm still building. Victory. Weapon unmade, person chosen, believer defeated, coup collapsed, Templars disarmed, king exposed, coalition authority on record, southern quiet holding, northern ceasefire holding, sovereign core preparing. The winter was not clean. It was not supposed to be. Kael wiped his nose. Blood had stopped. The coarse cracks hummed quietly, preparation, not damage. He would understand that later. Tonight he understood enough. Malachar had believed. Malachar had fallen. Damien had chosen. Seraphine had fought both fronts. Kael had held the geometry. The Order's anchor was gone. The Order's high priest was gone. The war's shape had changed. The high priest was dead. The Order's public face had broken on northern gate stones. He did not look further than tomorrow. He stood beside Seraphine at the tent mouth. Capital lights low. Costs counted. Victory real. Enough for tonight.